Hello, this is Mark LaRochelle from Productive Computing and Productive Computing University. Thanks for joining us on this presentation. This video will talk about Claris FileMaker Pro 2023. This is the Pro product that runs on Windows or Macintosh, and it's the main developer tool allowing developers to build applications for the Claris platform. In this video, we'll be talking about the different features, and I'll be demonstrating some of those features and certainly providing commentary along the way. Feel free to leave a comment if you have your own commentary or you have more questions. We'd be happy to address those below this video. In addition, check out the description because we have a lot of different links where you can learn more about the Claris platform or some of the specific things talked about in this video. So let's dive in and see what's new for the Claris FileMaker Pro 2023 version. Let's start with the functions. On the Mac OS, we have the getLiveText function, which is now supported not only in the Pro version on the client, but also when you run scripts on the server. But keep in mind, it is a Mac OS function only. And for those of you who missed this entire feature altogether because it just snuck under the radar, it's very cool. It's the ability to get and gather text from an image. And it was actually introduced not that long ago. It was introduced with version 19.5.1. I have a little demo here. And I've picked a really hard to discern and decipher image here. First of all, it's entirely grainy. We have multiple colors. We have cursive. We have uppercase and lowercase. I mean, to think that a computer might be able to interpret this would be a stretch, at least in my first impression of it. So when I click this button, it will run a function to set this field, live text, using the new feature. In fact, I'll show you that right now. All it does is it uses the getLiveText function and sets the text field with whatever text it can find in the image. Let's do that. So I'm impressed because this is in cursive, so it interpreted that correctly, how to make, including the capital H. Then we've got this multicolor, all caps font here with some really, really hard to discern letters. And it did miss that, but it did get the photo, collage, tent. It's actually text, but even a human might have a hard time understanding that that's not tent. So I kind of give it a pass on that. And then here again with Photoshop, all in cursive, fancy cursive at that, with the proper text discerned from that. So that is very cool. Now think about what you can do with this. You can insert receipts, let's say, in a container and have the receipt information, all that text plucked out of there. Or what if you had an elaborate set of scanned documents? So long as the documents were in a JPEG or PNG format, then this function will work. Again, that feature runs on Mac only, but it does now work on the server. So next we have, with Mac OS Ventura specifically, the getLiveText function now adds the ability to support Japanese, Korean, and Ukrainian. And let's just take a look at the languages supported here. We've got quite a few different languages supported so that you can tell it what language the text is likely in, so it has an easier time interpreting this as words. Next up, we have the new getBaseTable function, which returns the base table name of a provided field. Let's check this one out in Data Viewer, and I'll create a new expression. And it's called getBaseTableName, and it's looking for a field, so you can supply it with that. And based on the field first name here, the base table is contacts. Now, for years and years and years, we've had table names as a function that has been available since FileMaker 6.0. That goes way back. And what it produces is a list of all the table occurrences. So here in this demo file, I happen to have two base tables, one called demo, one called contacts. While at the same time, in my relationships graph, I have 5 table occurrences. Let's look at the data viewer, because I have some of these already working. And the table names function, the original function from the 6.0 days, will get you all the table occurrences. The brand new function, base table names, will get you just the base tables. Along with that, we have the base table IDs as well. Next up, we have the get cache file path and the get cache file name. Also in the data viewer, we can take a look at those. This will give you the name of the cache file, local to your computer, and the path to that. which will be in a temporary folder. I'm not entirely sure why that is important. I could see that this function would be extremely important prior to the release of the preference that allows you to simply remove the cache under the preferences. Let me show you where that is. That's over here, delete cache temp files. If you delete those, the cache will be deleted. That's a quick way of taking care of the situation. But if you do know the cache name, I suppose you could set up a routine to automatically make a call to delete that cache without requiring the user to go to preferences. Here again, that would only work effectively if the file was closed. Next, we have the read QR code function, which is now available to use in FileMaker Pro on Windows. So in my same demo here on my Mac, I have a QR code stored on a record, and on the Mac, I can read it just fine. This happens to be the productive computing URL. And now here I am on Windows, and now I have the exact same capability. So if you did store a bunch of QR codes in a container field, and you wanted a script to go through and determine what those were, or to act on them in some way, you can do that. getModifiedFields function now returns fields containing data when a new record is created. Here's one of those features that you also might have missed, although it originates way back in FileMaker 13. So let's go over to a sample file where I have fields for first name, last name, and company. I'll show the data viewer so we can see what's going on here. And I have this function ready to go, getModifiedFields. Now the function has always returned some form of modification. As soon as I modify this and exit this field, it'll let me know that the first name has been modified, and the last name has been modified, and the company has been modified, like so. But new to this feature, when I create a new record, it now knows all the fields that were edited as a result of the new record, separated by carriage returns. So in this case, I have all my housekeeping fields, primary key, creation timestamp, created by, modification timestamp, and modified by, all available here within that function. Now, if I were to make new changes from here, that would simply be added to the list. This will all be cleared the moment I commit the record, of course, but now it's more accurately depicting modified fields even when a new record is created. All right, now we talk about scripts. The execute FileMaker Data API script now supports the date formats parameter. This is particularly good if you're working with international dates and you're working with the data API. Now you can accept those dates and work with them in an easier way. The new perform script on server with callback script step performs a specified script on server. When complete, the client locally performs another specified script. This is a really interesting and neat feature. It's actually going to be very useful, I think. Let me show you that now. For this quick example, I will create two new scripts. The first script will be performed on the server. So I'll just say perform on server, so POS, create 500 records. And then I'll create another one that is my callback, and I'll say notification of complete. And this one will show a dialog, and it'll just say the server side script is complete. Then you'll likely have some script triggering the entire process, so I'll call this one the trigger. And you're going to have it perform the script on the server, but this time with the callback. So with this script step, you have to specify two things. The first thing you have to specify is the script you want to run on the server. So in this case, we'll run the perform on server, create 500 records. It also wants to know the callback script, the script to call when the server-side script is complete. So I'll click here. Then we'll specify the callback, notification of complete. Perfect. Now I don't have this file hosted at the moment, but what would happen is the user or a process would trigger the server-side script, it would go off and create 500 records, and when that script was complete, it would run this script here, which would look like this. It would essentially bring up a dialog box, the server-side script is complete. So what this effectively allows you to do is you can perform a script on server and not have to have the user wait for that to complete. You can have it run in the background, and when that server script is done, you have the option to have it trigger another script, either notifying the user that it's complete or performing yet another process altogether. This allows you to greatly enhance your workflow possibilities and create some additional efficiencies for the user. Next, we have the curl option, and the insert from URL script step now supports secure file transfer, that's SFTP, and includes a pub key option for SFTP, public key authentication. So much of what we do today is secure FTP versus traditional FTP, so having this available directly as a curl option is going to be very handy. Next, we have a script step that allows you to trigger a Claris Connect flow, which will initiate a Claris Connect workflow automation. That script step looks like this. I'll create a brand new script here. We'll call it test. And I'll just put in the word connect, and we see a script step available. Trigger Claris Connect flow. It's looking for a URL, which can be calculated, and accompanying JSON data. So in this example here, if I had first name, last name, company, and email, I could assign this button to trigger a flow that perhaps takes this information and adds a new MailChimp record for my mailing list. This new script step will make it infinitely easier to trigger a Claris Connect flow, and I'm looking forward to working with that more. Okay, now we have some general things. You can now double-click a FMCert license certificate file to initiate the license certificate process. Let's watch that one in action, because it just so happens that my brand new Claris FileMaker 2023 application here isn't technically licensed at this very moment. I will quit Claris FileMaker 2023. And I have the license certificate in my downloads folder. Let me double click and see what happens. Okay, it has opened up FileMaker Pro, and let's see if it's licensed. I'll go to FileMaker, About FileMaker Pro, and it now has our proper license information. That's a nice benefit there. On Windows, thumbnails can now be immediately created for PDF files in container fields. Next, we have the new OnWindowTransaction script trigger. Let's talk about that towards the end of the video because it requires a hands-on demo. After that, we have SQL queries to FileMaker databases can now access a FileMaker base tables system table. The new schema contains the following fields: base table name, base table ID, source, and mod count. This will be handy for anyone working with SQL and making queries directly like this. Sending mail using FileMaker Pro can now use OAuth 2.0 with Microsoft 365 Business or Google Workspace subscriptions. Let's take a look at that. I'll create a new script called mail. And we'll call the send mail script step. And this has been here for a long time. And we've always had the option of email client. Then later came the SMTP server. And now we've got a new kid on the block called OAuth 2.0. When I select that, it asks me the following questions. Who's my provider? Currently available, Google or Microsoft. Once you pick that, you'll choose the name, the reply to address, and the OAuth 2.0 information, which includes your application ID, the directory ID, your principal name, which is most likely your email address, and the client secret value. So all of this is available when you set up a Microsoft 365 account, the paid account. Currently, the specific setup would require an entire video unto itself. You have that for Microsoft as well as Google. Then one last thing to look at is dark mode is now partially supported for the relationship graph. Let me turn my computer into dark mode. Okay, we're now in dark mode. I will go into the relationships graph, and it looks like it supports dark mode. Now, what they mean by partially, I don't know exactly. That actually looks pretty slick. The rest of this list talks about addressed issues. I won't necessarily go through this, but I will put a link to this document below this video, along with several other links that might come in handy for you as you explore the Claris 2023 platform. Okay, as promised, I'd like to really focus a little bit of extra time on this new OnWindowTransaction script trigger and show you a very basic example of what kind of power is lurking here. So let me hide this document and jump into our demo file, and I will create a brand new script, and we'll call it transaction test. All right, for this to work, you actually need to create a transaction. So the first script step I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a transaction. So I'll just put in trans, and it will allow me to open a transaction. And whatever I do in here will be sort of in a protected bubble in such a way that I can capture information. So I'll open the transaction and I'll set the field. First name to script edited. First name. And we'll set the last name to script edited last name. Okay, now let me create another script, which I'll call audit record. And all I want this script to do is to show a custom dialog and present the current script parameter, just like that. That's all this script has to do. Push OK. So I want this audit record script to tell me what happened during the transaction. So for the magic to happen, I'll go up under File, File Options, and we'll locate the script triggers. So these are script triggers at the file level. We're used to these because we use these on first window open, on last window close, and occasionally on some of these others. But in this case, we have a brand new one here at the bottom called OnWindowTransaction. When I click on that, I'm presented with the ability to perform a script. The script I'd like to perform is the audit record script. So carefully looking at how this works, it says here, the script, which is this audit record script, will be run after a transaction is successfully committed. So the transaction we're talking about is going to come from that script that we first created, the transaction test. And it's really this one script step right here that begins the action. Once any script that's running sees this commit transaction, it will automatically call whatever script you specified, in this case, audit record. So let's watch this in action, and I'll run it through debugger. And I'll put my debugger here so it's out of the way, and I'll move this over here so it's on the left side like this. Okay, and the script I want to run is the transaction test. So we're going to open a transaction. We're going to set these fields, first name and last name. Then we'll commit the transaction, which will then trigger the OnWindowTransaction, which is assigned to the script audit record. And if you look closely here, you can see we have a script parameter automatically created for us. And if I continue, we now have a script parameter formatted in JSON with information that could potentially begin the work to create your own audit log, as an example. So let's see what we have here. I'll look at the help file. We have the file name, which is Claris FileMaker 2023. We have the base table name, which is contacts. We have the record ID, which is 2, which is actually down here. Then we have the operation, which is modified. Something was modified. And contents of that base table's field named OnWindowTransaction, or a specified field for every operation. We didn't actually specify a field, so we don't have anything to really go on here. We have blank. All right. So let's do one more thing. Let's now add our own audit field, and I'll call it GAudit. And we'll make it a text-based field, and I'll make it a global. There we are, GAudit. And let's just suppose that we wanted to change this back up again manually. Now let's suppose that we had a script that triggered when the user entered this record. They're about to edit the record, and we have a script that captures the previous information here for us in the global field. So I'll create this script called previous info. And we'll call the set field command. We'll target the global field. And let's just say we want to get the information from the first name. And I'll call it first like this. And we'll include that. And then we'll include a paragraph. And we'll combine that with the last name. So let me just copy this whole line here. Take off the end of it. Put the word last. And we'll say last name info. So now we're capturing the first name and the last name info, just in a small text string. So let me just trigger that so that we have it in the global field. Okay, so we have that now. And to prove that, I'll just put the global field on the layout temporarily. If you were actually doing an audit log, you wouldn't necessarily show your audit field right there like that. So we have first name info Mark, last name info La Rochelle. So now we've captured that in the global. So now what we can do is go back here under File, Options. Let's look at the script triggers again. So we've already specified the script, but we have this optional field name. So if I just simply put this gaudit as the field name I want to also capture in the JSON, I can do that. So I'll push OK now. And now we will start this again. We'll perform the transaction test while debugger is on. And it's obviously going to set those fields to what the script says. It's going to commit the transaction, which will call the OnWindowTransaction, which will call the audit record script. And now, in our script parameter, which is being displayed by this custom dialog, we have the same information we had before, but now we have additional information. First name info Mark, last name info La Rochelle. So if you did want to capture a bunch of information about what the record looked like before the user edited it and put that in a log somewhere, you can certainly do that. But you would have to set it up ahead of time. So this is just one very crude, very basic example of how you might be able to use this. But if you take this a step further, you could easily create an audit log on anything that you want. So really, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And because the OnWindowTransaction script trigger can call any script, you could specify that script to perform on server, thereby creating your audit log server-side as a background process. Well, I hope you enjoyed the features of the new Claris FileMaker Pro 2023 edition. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to catch more information as it becomes available. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.